All right, Nick, let's talk about the Florida State Seminoles. This past week, Coach Norvell came and he spoke to some people at a varsity club luncheon, and he kind of was talking about and laying out a plan that he thinks that he has found some interesting nuggets by watching some of the best teams in college football last year, namely the Georgias, the Alabamas, and he thinks that Florida State is now able to do some of the tactics that they were doing in some of the bigger games and kind of stack up in a way that is very similar to them. I think it's going to be really exciting for the Seminoles fans.
Yeah, Miles, it's a great story you found. But before we get into that, Seminole fans, I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. We're talking about FSU stacking up against with the preeminent programs in college football. It wasn't that long ago that Florida State was stacking up against and beating the top programs in college football. They used to recruit a lot of amazing football players throughout the generations. Obviously, the Bobby Bowden era, the national title under Jameis Winston, a lot of great football teams, a lot of great players. Give us the one guy, though, that you watched that you think embodies the Florida State Seminole football program, the quintessential Seminole, if you will, and let us know who that guy is in the comment section below. But all right, Myers, what you got? What's the latest coming out of Tallahassee?
Yeah, Nick, I think just the general theme of today's video is Florida State is doing stuff right lately. They've been making some really good progress under Coach Norvell. I think they're back on track to being that quintessential powerhouse team. They might not be quite there yet, but they're getting close. They're doing the right things. And what I was speaking of earlier, what Coach Norvell said at this luncheon was he talked about specifically on defense. The way that you play championship defense, championship football in the college football realm was by rotating players, having depth at a lot of different positions, specifically the defensive line. And he said, you go back, you look at the national championship game, all those guys, nobody's going through the motions. They're rotating guys. Everyone's fresh. Everyone's getting at it 100% high motor all the time. And he said that is how you dominate on defense. And that is what Georgia did. That's what the Alabamas do. And that's what Florida State is going to do because they have enough guys now, Nick. They've gotten in a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to just read some names off to you. They had Jared Verse, a potential first-round draft pick guy, came back for another year. Fabian Levitt, Dennis Briggs, Malcolm Ray, Josh Farmer, Daniel Lyons, Patrick Payton, Derek McClendon. They got the transfer from South Carolina and Gilbert Edmond. And then the grad student from Western Michigan, Braden Fisk. There's a ton of depth on this defensive side of the ball. And I really think FSU is primed to kind of play that style of football that was so successful for the Georgias, the Alabamas, and even maybe like an Ohio State or something like that. What do you think about this, Nick?
Yeah, so it's been kind of a theme of a lot of the college football videos we put out over the past week or two is that teams that are making things smart the way they're running their programs is they're not just collecting talent, they're building a team. They have a strategy and a game plan in the recruiting and the transfer portal domains, right? Some teams, they seem to just go like, I want that 4-star. I want that 4-star. Give me as many 4 stars and 5 stars as I possibly can get. We just want to bring in a lot of guys. And it just, you get kind of a weird hodgepodge of football players, right? That's kind of what Texas A&M has struggled with at times. They recruit really well on paper, but it's really just a lot of guys that don't really fit in a larger plan. Florida State, to your point, Miles, has done a great job with the plan and the execution of about building depth, specifically on the defensive line. And that's a great point by Norvell that's how you win major college football. You look at Georgia, right? One of the reasons they've won back-to-back national titles is because they have essentially like 12 first-round draft picks on their defensive line, it seems like. They I think 2 last year. Gee whiz. They had 2 last year, and they had 2 going into this year as well. And I think they got a few other guys in the pipeline as well. So you got a talented team already, and with quality depth, you're pretty much unbeatable. And that's what Norvell has been focusing on. But he's not the only one that I've noticed what Florida State has done. So I think this was a very interesting story is that for ESPN every year as part of their preseason, they have kind of a computer analytics model. They call it their S&P and Plus model for people that aren't sure. Basically, they just grade out based on raw data who they think the best football teams in the country is. And Florida State came in at a pretty solid number 11. But the fact is they beat out some big time contenders, Mike. They were actually the number 1 team in the ACC ahead of Clemson. They're ahead of Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Florida, UCLA, a lot of other programs there where TCU, in fact, went to the college football playoff. Florida State is ranked ahead of them in terms of an analytics basis. And they're looking at the talent on the roster and, just everything going on with that football team when it's just raw numbers, right? No opinion in that poll. So to me, that shows what Florida State is doing is quietly and successfully upgrading the talent level at their roster and coming up with a great game plan to compete with the very best in the college football world. And I think Norvell is really onto something here, and Florida State could really surprise a lot of people potentially in 2023 because of it.
Yeah, no, I think they're on the right path. I think that, they're going in the right direction. I think the administration is on board. Norvell talked about that they're all in alignment as far as him and the administration. And he's really grateful for them bringing him on, obviously. But he can feel the passion from the university, the staff. They can kind of feel it's like that first domino starts to fall, and you can kind of feel it build up all around you.
It's a
Everything's
flywheel,
gaining,
right? It just feels
yeah,
like
yeah,
compounding.
compounding. They're gaining momentum. I like that analogy. That's exactly what it is. The momentum's starting to build, and I just think Florida State. You can feel that, as you said. I think they were at the top 11. This article is saying that they potentially could be, ranked in top 10 in other parts. They're getting back to where they need to be as a program. When you think Florida State, you think of a powerhouse. You think a top 10 team that can compete for a national title. And I think they're right on the precipice of getting there, and I'm very excited to see what they can do down the stretch.